As she spoke, her strength gave out. Her limbs fell light and limp to earth, an arm alone kept off the ground. Then first the verdure of her eyes was sullied by the sudden swell and flood of tears that now came forth. Listless, plunged in loneliness, she felt she could not face her fate. But while her sight was painted blur, she felt a tremor in the earth. The heavy thud of horses' hoofs, while far and wide were to be heard the calls and cries of men with goads embarked upon unpitying chase. All at once she felt ashamed, in fear her folk would find her there. She took herself aside the clear, concealed behind the beechen bark. Now closer came the distant cries, and barking, panting from nearby. Then drowned and in the distance died, the hunt went on into the wood. Long at last all silent lay, but for the rustling forest floor. Now in that nothingness renewed, Saule sank down soured again, and as she stood out from the shade, her head once more she hung downcast, nor looked upon the light aloft, which still refused to stay its shine, and gild her glow for all her gloom. Then in a stroke the stillness shook, and shattered with a sudden force. For full and flustered unforeseen, a hunter hurtled cross her path. His keen green eyes glowed wide and bright, as all about they sought their prey. His golden curls were clasped behind, which fell for all as fair a girl's, and on his pale but burning brow was wound a wreath of linden leaf. Though far he'd ventured from the rest to catch the quarry that he sought, yet still, for all his skill and strength, the beast was proved the better. Its tail dropped down beneath the bush and disappeared without a trace. The huntsman heaved a heavy sigh, to see his food fly from his hands, and let his bow drop down to ground, while still he stood and strained his eyes. Saule, stunned first at the shock, dared not to move nor to withdraw. There she stood, and made no sound. The huntsman did not mark the maid, but put his bow upon his back, and groaned again the beast's escape. Now, long at last, he left his watch, and glanced about the golden grove. Then first he saw the princess sigh. There she stood, a holy sight, with hair inwove with autumn gold, whose eyes to him seemed hewn the shards of sun itself, they shone so bright. She spoke no words, nor made a sound, but in his light she bathed as blithe as first the flowers faced the sun, when winter's weary work is done, and spring her icy slumber sheds. At once the work of love was done. They looked a moment, longer looked, too long, and lent their lives to look. Saule's son's sadness forsook, and he his hopes and past forgot.